Thank you very much for that question. First and foremost, we cannot sustain our small businesses and our corporations here in California if we do not have dignified housing for our workforce. And so, as when I was on the city council, we were able to state that we had created more affordable housing in 12 years than had ever been created in the history of the city. Think about that. That was the first building block. With this council that came in and Mayor Sarmiento and creating the rent stabilization policy, what that does is it still allows people to increase the rents by 3%, which I think is very reasonable. But it prohibits people from doing what they've done in other surrounding communities, which is increase rent by 10 to 15%. We talk about wanting to curb homelessness, yet we don't fight against what creates homelessness. And so I want to make sure that we maintain the current policy that has been created in the city and look at any potential loopholes and strengthen those. I think that on phase two is that we also need to create affordable housing dwellings for purchases too, for people that make under $100,000. Right now, our young people are having a difficult time affording a home. I want to be able to create a system in the city that helps to meet.
So what we've seen through the rent caps is a lot of these apartments are ending their leases and now moving from month to month, which is the loophole that they use to raise the rent per month. But not just that, they're now using it as an excuse or justification to evict their tenants out, raise their prices, and then hire somebody else who can't afford that price. Those being outsiders of Santa Ana. You know, if you actually want to lower the rent here, I'd propose any property tax, and that would just be a big discount in the bill that people pay for the rent. It's just something they don't see in their bill when they pay rent. But it's a very strong change when you see that. You know, if you want to build more housing, you got to end the zoning. You got to end the subsidies that force tenants to pay more for other renters. And you got to end CEQA and allow housing to be built and allow more space to be open. You got to allow people to have businesses from their homes so that there could be more space and where we could take abandoned buildings and turn them into homes, whether it's apartment or houses of all types. But, you know, I don't think the city has a right to decide who can stay based on how much they pay, based on who gives more money. That's just always ends to corruption and special interests, you know, backroom deals. People have a right to live in their city. They don't have the right, the city has no right to kick them out just because they don't pay a certain price. So I actually have a problem with the police oversight being introduced by one of our council members, David Peñalosa, who actually happens to be funded by the police union, who is willing to fire any police who are against the rule of law. Again, it's another situation where the police are policing themselves, which sounds corrupt by default. And, you know, if we're going to have police oversight, it's got to be community based. You know, that means evidence can't be withheld. And, you know, the community has a right to investigate policing when malfeasance is done. You know, if you actually want to fix the police system, we end demilitarization. We got to end civil asset forfeiture. We got to end no-knock raids. We got to end the war on drugs and the wars that the police has had on us. You got to get rid of no victim crime so that innocent people don't go to jail anymore. You know, that would be my response towards the police oversight and just fixing our police in general.
Thank you, Jesse, for your response. And so just for clarity, you don't believe that the current approach of police oversight is what's needed for the city? Just want to clarify.
I disagree with the current police oversight.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that question. One of the items that I have had a hard time with is with a small segment of police officers in the city of Santa Ana who you put on a badge and they do not fully embrace the responsibility that they have. They have a responsibility to protect. That's number one, is to protect and to arrive at a scene without bias. And so we have paid out millions upon millions in officer-involved violent interactions with our community. Now think about that for a second. We've spent millions on that. That means there's been many, many victims in our community. Therefore, you have a distrust right now where our community thinks once, twice, or three times before they call a police officer to come and solve. We need to create a police oversight committee. What I do know is, I don't want to get political here. Do I want the police oversight to have more teeth? Absolutely. But there's also state law that dictates how much power a citizens oversight committee can have. So what I want to do is first create one to the best of our ability so that we can have items at least come to the forefront, whereas before they don't come to the forefront, they stay behind the scenes.
Final thoughts now?
I want them to come into the public, and then I want us to build on that. And if we need to change the law at the state level, we start by creating a strong foundation and then moving on to the state level. Thank you for that question. First and foremost, I'm going to take this a little deeper than that question is asking. What happens right now is there's a big need for mental health. But if you don't have good mental health, if you don't have good insurance, medical coverage, it is very difficult to get counselors that will even see you. And let me tell you why. Medicare and Medi-Cal only pay a small percentage of what the going rate is. So if the going rate for a counselor is $100 an hour, they will only pay about $20 or $30 of that, which then what happens is counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists prefer not to take those patients because they don't get paid all the way through. This is what I want to do, and this is why I am running. I want to create our own public health agency. After what we went through during COVID, where the county sent the first COVID vaccines to Laguna instead of Santana and Anaheim, where we were suffering the most, we couldn't do anything about it because we did not have our own health agency. We had to rely on the county. Now, I know that Vicente Sarmiento, if he becomes supervisor, we won't have to worry too much about that. But that's if. I believe he can. But we need to prepare just in case things don't go our way so that we can protect our community. I want to create our own public health agency so that we can offer the mental health coverage that is needed to bring psychologists and psychiatrists to our community to serve our public. Thank you.
So like I said, I'm running on cleaning our streets and making our city wealthier than ever before to reduce the cost of living so that, we don't have to go through that financial stress, and we can feel confident walking outside in our city streets so that we can actually socialize in the community, go outside and interact, so that we can actually walk to the parks, have friends, communities, rather than stay inside consistently. I'm thinking of expanding after school programs where students can socialize with the students alongside them to catch up on, what was missed out. And, that includes seniors too, for, any retirement homes, or just expanding that. I would also expand like school programs and electives so that they could, relieve all that stress and just focus their mental capacity and expand it. And, what happened during the lockdowns, the students didn't deserve. They were left alone with social isolation, and their parents couldn't do anything about it because their parents had to focus on working, or they too were out of work. So it was a dead-end situation. And, just hearing Sal try to prove Sarmiento, I don't think a public service in the city would help, considering the one at state level and at the federal level didn't work to fix the vaccine situation at all. It failed then. I don't see why it would, succeed now. I'm not saying Sarmiento is a better or worse candidate than whoever's running for supervisor, but I just, on that point, we need I would love to work with Tinajero, since he works at the school boards over there in Rancho Santiago, and talk to those students trying to become counselors themselves and expand that. So I would have the mayor, the council, and any elected official promote these youth services rather than just the city by itself. I'm fearing that they're not doing so just so that they could keep the budget and use the money for themselves and pocket it, or use it for their special interest, or make whatever excuse they want for youth services. We have to be transparent about where that money's going, and transparent about the services, and just in general ending no victim crimes before, so that these students don't get arrested and their lives ruined for innocent crimes or no victim crimes, as I said before they even have the chance to work on these youth services.
Thank you. I do agree with Jesse on this one that we have to look outside just our city's Parks and Rec department. If I become mayor, one of the first items that I'm going to do is go and take a look and really examine how our Parks and Recreation is allocating fields, how are they working with their partners, and what type of programs are they offering. I think we have to do a private-public partnership and a nonprofit public partnership. I'll give you an example. Our little leagues have pretty much depleted around the city. In the meantime, we also have our pony baseball leagues that are actually flourishing. But some segments of our population don't have the money to afford, if they have 2 or 3 or 4 kids, to be a part of those programs, or Pop Warner football or NJB, just to name a few. What I believe is that the city should allocate funds and create a program that if you make under a certain amount of money, or if you have multiple children who want to participate, we should be able to provide that. Today, we have the money to do it. So let's do it and let's invest. As a teacher, as an educator for 27 years, I work with students. I work with them and I hear what they like, what works and what doesn't work. And so I'll continue to keep those lines of communication open with our youth, as I always have, to be able to meet their needs so that we create a brighter future for our community. Thank you. Environmental justice has a variety of different elements. We have environmental justice when it comes to green space, when it comes to food deserts and so forth. In our city, one of the main areas is the lead that's in some of the areas within our community. It is very evident that once lead gets into your system, it doesn't go away. And so we need to, number one, is create an extensive plan with our environmental team to identify where in the city do we have these lead pathogens, or the lead in our soil that we need to exterminate. And then next, we then have to create a game plan on what we're going to do to clean that soil up, and what we're going to do to create temporary housing for the people that live in those areas. It is a very complex plan, but we need to start somewhere to start the ball rolling.
So in terms of environmental concerns, I'm concerned about the outsourcing of energy. It's one thing to implement green energy here and stop producing, and then buy products from another city that use the energy we're trying to avoid, such as gas and coal. And just to transport, it produces more emissions. So we need to allow manufacturing closer towards at home, and have energy produced here at home, and the cleanest and cheapest energy, which is power plants. We can't afford the batteries or all the capacity and all the digging as the other cities who vote on this and can't afford it. For the cities that vote for all these green initiatives, if they want to pay for it, I'm fine by that. They should be able to pay for it, but they can't make us bear the cost if we didn't agree to it, because not all of us agree to it. I would open a green line. I would propose instead a green license where we open public space towards energy companies for green uses, such as batteries, chargers, solar panels, windmills. Again, I talk to the cities and see if they could subsidize the price of energy here if they want to. It's all voluntary because they're the ones voting and supporting it the most. I'd also suppose a middle of nowhere plan where we work with the city nearby to build a power plant in the middle of nowhere so that people don't have to worry about any concerns environmentally. And just on the lead in the soil, I'd have developers clean that up and investigate how much there is, get it out. They could do whatever they want with it, sell it, but for the lead that's still in the soil in other areas, final thought, I will work with the Sarmiento, who's worked in water district, to filter our water and make sure that it doesn't get inside the system and make us sick. So again, in terms of government transparency, I'm open to voluntary body cams of our public officials so that communities and the people have access to what we're saying, what we're thinking, what we're doing in terms of financials and all the deals, just to avoid all those backroom deals and any possible corruption or special interests. Again, we believe in the quote of we are innocent until proven guilty, but it's already a sure sign of fear when a public official doesn't want to be on camera consistently, or, you know, is trying to have something to hide while in office, even though we elected them. And, you know, information is not, you know, knowledge is power, especially for communities when they're voting on issues and, you know, they want legislation passed or some bills passed. So it's important that we have transparency in terms of governing powers for a community.
Thank you. First and foremost, to be able to bring people together, you have to know who they are. So when I was on the school board, I worked with padres promotores, I worked with our PTAs, our school site councils. On the city council, I had access and worked with the neighborhood associations within my district and in my ward. You need to know who's who and what their needs are. I have the experience where I've worked in the school district and I've served as a school board member and talked to the parents to find out what it is their needs are and how is it that we can maximize our resources. And so what we find is if we can use some of our schools as parks during after school hours, we maximize our resources. If we can use some of our libraries in the neighborhood schools, we maximize our resources. But in order to do that, you need to know who are the people that can make those decisions happen, how we can bring resources together so that money can also be utilized to help these different organizations work. So everywhere I've gone, from school board, city council, and now college trustee, when I exit out of those and you talk to the staffs, they always tell you, Sal treated us with respect, Sal listened, and he brought people together. He didn't divide people. And so I think that's what we need right now is someone that's going to unify and bring us together to create the best Santana that we've ever seen. Thank you. Thank you. First and foremost, 50% of our residents in Santana do not own a car. So that's why bike lanes are important. And that's why public transportation is important. I have to be real careful, and we have to be real careful and be honest. When it comes to the Orange County Transit Authority, we have one seat. Every city has one seat. So we're one vote in the Orange County Transit Authority. However, our supervisors have a direct impact on how busing will be handled in Orange County. What I would do as your mayor is I want to expand the ridership past 2023. I've seen what it has done for my students, both my K through 12 students and my college students, in their ability to get around, to get to schooling, to get to work and earn a living. When it comes to quality of life, what I can do is this. I can create better bus stops and work with OCTA to invest in our city so that all our bus stops have shade or a cover so that when it rains, our people are protected. And at the same time, push with our political capital here in Santana as the county seat to create more equitable bus locations, and more importantly, to bring transportation into areas that are much needed, where there's heavy transport. So I'm being honest with you, what I can do as mayor for our current city, but I will also advocate at the county level to make sure that we also meet the needs of our community. Thank you. And I do believe in that free ridership for our youth as well.